most mutual aid groups, nobody is getting paid to do the work. And that's been the history of mutual aid and the history of social movements, is that most people are doing this work because they desperately need and want change, not because they're getting paid. And especially, if you're getting paid to do work in, like nonprofits or whatever, you're generally getting paid by our opposition, right? You're being paid either by rich people through philanthropy or by the government through government grants. And so those forces are not going to pay us to destroy the government and wealth. And so usually that money comes with strings attached that limit the horizons of the work and usually try to make it into like depoliticized service work that isn't actually going to build power and build bold oppositional strategies that, take down our opposition. So most of the work won't be paid, but some mutual aid groups do have some paid roles. It does happen. And there is a really big tension about how to have there be paid people and not have that actually demobilize everybody else, right? So one tendency is that it's like, well, if there's paid people, we just expect them to do the work and we don't actually build, like, it's not a membership-based organization where tons and tons of unpaid people are mobilizing to do the work. And so it just has to stay really small. And it's like this mutual aid project, just like these paid staff serve people and there's kind of nobody else really involved. Like that's a typical nonprofit model, is that beyond whoever is paid, there's not really like deep governance of or mobilization or participation by anybody else. And so that's a huge problem. And because, we need to be building like gigantic movements that have, that mobilize tons and tons of people. So if we pick a structure that limits that, we've kind of really limited the horizons of possibility. Sometimes it is possible, if we really work hard, to build a mutual aid project that has a few paid people that are holding down some of the coordination, but that are focused on mobilizing tons and tons of people to do the mutual aid work, not just to be like fans of the org or like donate once in a while or like them on Instagram or whatever, but instead to actually be mobilized to do the actual mutual aid work. And it is hard. It's hard not to become staff centered. It's hard not to have staff be like the bottleneck, like everything has to go through them. And so it really can limit how much the group can grow, or people enter it as volunteers, right? And they feel like they can't like get up and running and do amazing things because everything has to go through whatever the staff process is. So how do we make a porous enough project where even if we have some people being paid because they are going to do some coordination role, or maybe I could imagine like something like, let's say you had a mutual aid based health project and you had like a couple doctors or nurses, and those people, for whatever reasons, you were paying, but like you still had a lot of other people still providing healthcare and making the project work, who were not paid, whether they were people who were trained in medicine or more like lay people who could take on roles that lay people can take on in healthcare. So that, I just want to acknowledge that that's really hard. And it is easy for it to feel like it's a hierarchy where the staff are the real decision makers, or the staff are the real, the only people who are fully mobilized to participate. And I think some of the ways people can try to avoid that are having a really clear membership structure, knowing like, having really clear teams, so that like if we've got like a team that's doing the supplies and a team that's doing the distribution and a team that's doing the transportation, that like there might be staff on each team, but the other people, like all the meetings are happening when people who aren't staff can be there, and like the decision making that's happening is happening like that. It's not just like everything goes through staff and you just have like, I think that typical nonprofit role where you're like, well, I can stuff envelopes, like just kind of very limited things are possible for non-staff members in nonprofits. We want to imagine what's the way to structure this work so that decision making, stewardship, and real participation is possible for a broader set of people beyond staff. And there's different groups that have tried this in a lot of different ways. I think it is challenging, and it's like everything else. It's just like a tactic. Like having some people be paid can be like a strategic tactic at a particular moment. Of course, you want to be concerned about like, where is that money coming from? What are the strings attached to it? Are we setting up a situation where the organization becomes actually just focused on making sure the staff still get paid, and so that then we, take money that comes with more strings attached, or things we don't really want, or we're having a lot of conflict about how to keep this organization paying these people, and that becomes like its primary focus. All of that is very like typical downsides of sort of nonprofit staffing.